Well, hi again, folks, and welcome into Health Talk Mississippi, the podcast brought to you by the Mississippi State Department of Health. I'm your host, Greg Flynn, and what we hope to do today is inform, educate, and, well, in some capacity, entertain you today. And we are joined to talk about interpersonal violence, which is very wide-ranging, and I just thought this was a fascinating topic to be able to bring you all. It is something that we do at the health department that not a lot of people know about, and in some cases, that's a good thing because they operate kind of under the surface, helping people. Joining me today is our director of the Office Against Interpersonal Violence, OAIV, as we like to call it, Sarissa Eubanks. Sarissa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we just really want to educate the public about these vital resources for all victims of a crime. I have with me Zavia Johnson-Jenkins. She's the Grant Administrator for Human Trafficking Services. I also have Dr. Larisha Robinson. She oversees VAWA funds, which consist of Sexual Assault Services Program funds, STOP funds, which is services training, officers and prosecution funding. Also, I have with me Patty Williams. She's over community projects, which consist of domestic violence, shelter program funds, family violence victim services program funds, rape prevention and education, and preventive health and health services block grant funding as well. Also, Mrs. Ty Barnes, she's new to the department. She is our sexual assault services coordinator.
We got a lot of very nice ladies in here, and boy, a wealth of knowledge here in the room. Sarissa, just to kind of like lay the groundwork, when we say interpersonal violence, can you define that?
So with interpersonal violence, it's domestic violence, it's child abuse, child sexual assault. These are personal crimes that our funds are designed to target to restore victims of domestic violence. So, but we're also very fortunate to also have funding to support some prevention as well. And so we're excited about that because we're also able to focus on prevention as well as direct services. So we see both sides, beginning and the end.
Well, and I don't know, when we talk about prevention, you know, it always seems like this is a reactionary type program that we have. It's hard to, I guess, prevent or get people to come forward before something happens. Any of you ladies want to tackle that one as to how we deal with prevention versus just being reactive to it?
Patty Williams is our program grant administrator, and the Family Violence Prevention Services Act and Rape Prevention and Education are the preventive areas that she specializes in.
So, Patty, how do we when we talk about prevention, what are ways that we can help folks get help in advance?
So one of the ways that you can do that is see what is around you. Be aware of what's happening. A lot of times people do not, well, we're in the South, so people don't like to think that we either have sexual abuse or domestic violence, but we do. I've had a lot of people say to me, you just think it's under every bush. And I'm like, sometimes it is, unfortunately. And so just the first thing that you need to do is become aware that we have it and understand that being left in the shadows, it's just establishing another generation of people who've been abused.
Well, I suppose it's one of those things that not only if you see one of your friends or one of your family that may be in a little bit of a dangerous situation, but then also having a victim be willing to come forward to say, I need to get some help before I wind up as a deadly victim of these things.
That's why we have really, I say we, and when I say we, it is really the shelters and the programs that we have all over the state that work with these victims.
We take this money and we sub-grant it out to local agencies that specialize with this population. So that's crisis intervention. They're coming in because they're responding to something, to an interpersonal violent incident. And so another thing that I like about the funds that are administered through our office is that these services are at no cost to the victims and their families. The other important thing is that these are not taxpayer dollars. This money comes from the Crime Victims Fund, right? So these are formula grants. This money comes from the Office of Justice Programs, Department of Justice, and these funds are administered to states and territories so that we can in turn put this money back into the community to help frontline workers, your first responders to victims of crime, first responders to human trafficking, first responders when it comes to rape crisis, first responders when it comes to teen dating violence, right? So these organizations are the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are going out in the night, responding to a DV call, you know, in a truck or a van, rescuing somebody to take them and their family and any belongings that they can grab at that time and take them back to a safe, secure location. And so this is the type of stuff that we want to focus on. These people, these are also first responders. We like to think about law enforcement and firefighters, but when you have somebody that's responding to a crisis, you know, think about first responders when you have a human trafficking sting and you have somebody that's going out to rescue a child or rescue an adult or a whole group of people, right? Those are also heroes that are not classified when it comes to a first responder, but we want to make mention of them because they are. So.
Well, when we talk about, you know, we want to try and prevent it from becoming in a very deadly situation potentially. What's the apprehension that you all have found, you know, with victims that are apprehensive about coming forward, that you know, this whoever their aggressor is, be it man or woman, that many times it's a repeat offender, that they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And, you know, I've heard stories of like charges that don't stick. It's like, okay, we charge them, but then they dropped them and didn't want to press charges. What's that apprehension that anybody that has seen there?
One of the things that I've seen is, for one, victims not knowing their rights, victims not having access to adequate legal services, because that also affects charges being dropped. And so with the VOCA grant, it pays for legal services. One of the allowables that a person will receive, you get legal services, you get notifications from the courts, you get the opportunity to learn about your rights as a victim so that you're empowered to then exert your right, know what to expect, right, to help with moving forward. And so having adequate resources, I think that's the biggest thing, that victims don't know what's available. And so that's our job, to make sure that we do a better job of outreach and advertising so that, you know, you don't have people that don't want to come forth because they feel like they can't afford certain things. But as I mentioned earlier, it's no cost to the victim. And so also the other side of that is victim compensation, where, you know, if a person was a victim of a crime, compensation pays for lost wages. If someone happened to get murdered as a result of domestic violence, compensation pays for funeral expenses. So just all of these services that are out here, I just feel like we need to do more to market so people can come forth and get the help that they need.
I know this may be pie in the sky, but are there resources available if somebody says, you know, I'm an abuser and I want to get help myself? I know that that's pie in the sky maybe, but are there resources to help people that want to get help with their anger management with things, or is that just kind of like, well, we're just hoping for that?
So, and that goes into like allowables. So with the VOCA grant, we only focus on victims. We don't really focus on the abuser. So it's But you, Dr. Robinson, Zavia, Patty, if you guys want to kind of expound on that in terms of the abuser, but I know most of our funding is directly for the victims, their families, witnesses, but not necessarily the abuser or perpetrator.
Our family violence services funds do allow for perpetrator services, so we can do that. And there is a big need because let's get rid of the perpetrator so we don't have to, so we have people that are not abused.
Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately the key. We talk about prevention all the time. If we can catch it before it gets, and people can recognize it, and then a victim says, "Oh, you need help," there are services out there for you to hopefully ward this off before it gets to be too extreme and go along any further.
I would like to say, primary prevention, our grant doesn't, the VOCA grant, Victim of Crime grant, it doesn't really focus on primary prevention, but it does focus on secondary and tertiary prevention. I mean, we ensure that the victim does not get, re-victimized again. So there is preventive work around that. So
you just hope they don't keep going back to the well, because a lot of times it's I don't know, and that's what I was trying to get down to with you folks. Is it fear? Is it just their complacency that they don't want to mess up their relationship, and that's where they feel safe even though it's violent? It's just what are the causes that some women or men even, because it can happen to both, that they just want to stick it out despite what's going on?
Most of the homicides are happen when a woman is trying to leave.
And there are times when the perpetrator is the head of household. And so sometimes the victim may fear losing access to resources. And so they may try to stick it out for those things. So the fear of financial loss may be a reason why the wife or the partner may stay with the perpetrator. So we do see incidents where they would stay because they are comfortable. They have access to a certain lifestyle, but look at what they're losing overall, right? The mental abuse, the physical abuse, pulling back from family and friends because you're trying to hide the fact that you are a victim of domestic violence. So the shame that comes with being a victim. And that's another thing with the mental health counseling that's free for victims. We talk about those types of things that they need to cope with. So we're just really fortunate that with all of the programs that are administered by the Office Against Interpersonal Violence, we typically cover all 82 counties with all the programs that we have. And so we are trying to do a better job of ensuring that, for the most part, access. Who can you call in your area? And so identifying who our partners are is one of the strategies that we're working on going forward.
A lot of times people think Mississippi, it's just a small state. They don't have a whole lot going on down there. One of the things that absolutely blew my mind is I got to spend time with you all is the human trafficking element that it's here, and it's big business for a lot of folks. Unfortunately, which is why I think it keeps growing.
And that it is, Greg. It is. It is big. It is a big thing here in Mississippi. And one thing we tackle on this is denial. A lot of people don't think it's here. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. People are like, "Oh, human trafficking doesn't happen here. That happens in big cities." It's just not here. And I face that multiple times when I'm talking to people and trying to do outreach with people and trying to educate people about the indicators of what's going on with human trafficking. I've heard top officials say, that's not happening in my neighborhood. No, it's happening in your neighborhood. It's happening in the suburbs. It's happening in rural towns. It's happening everywhere. And it's happening to anyone. Does not matter about age, race, sexual agenda, gender. It doesn't matter. It can happen to anyone at any age. It could be someone that's unbelievable 65 years old. It could happen to. That could be put into that. So what we focus on is really trying to educate people. We don't want to say signs and symptoms. We like to say indicators. We like to educate and let people know what's going on. So I'm really glad we're having this talk for January, because January is Human Trafficking Month. A lot of people don't know that January 11th is Human Trafficking Day, and we ask people to wear blue. It's like a kind of a royal color blue that we would like people to wear so they would know and show support. So with my funding, when it comes to that, I have the federal funding, which we work with service providers all over the state of Mississippi. Like she said, 82 counties we work with. So basically what I go out, and I had a past coworker that retired, and she was ex-law enforcement, and she helped me understand a lot. So with my funding, I have two sides to it. I have law enforcement, I have victim services. Like I say, I'm on the victim services side of it. Law enforcement side is run by Department of Public Safety on that side. So we have some challenges when it comes to working together and trying to educate, but one thing they do is educate law enforcement what to see if they pull somebody over and there's a child in the car. Let's say it's a 5-year-old child in the car with 2 adult males. You want to ask questions. You want to see what's kind of going on. You suspect something, ask those questions. So they teach law enforcement to ask questions. They teach them to recognize some signs, some questions to ask and everything. Once they might identify a trafficker, they'll get that person away from them. If it's someone who wants to disclose to them, they know how to ask those questions so they can disclose. So moving over to the victim services side is more of once I would say young man, young lady, whoever, when they come out of their life or they're rescued or recovered, as they say all the time, we have services, we have funding that can pay for things. For instance, I just use these as examples. If you have a young lady, I'm not trying to pick on the ladies because we always want to say human trafficking affects ladies. If the lady comes out of the life and let's say her trafficker has knocked her teeth out, we can pay for dental services for that. We can get their teeth fixed. You can say a lot of people may have service dogs, service animals, and they're not qualified as service animals, but that means a lot to them. Our funding can pay if that dog or animal needs some help or something. And looking at that, when it goes over to the needing therapy to get them back right, to get them back into a lifestyle where they can be, where they can live in society and live a good life. We have trauma-informed therapy we can pay for. We have equine therapy we can pay for. If they want to go to school, we can pay for them to go to school. So that funding is a lot. And, when she was saying we do have preventive measures that we do. We do a lot of outreach. And we try to talk to churches, faith-based, because a lot of people think that, people don't go to church, or people don't know in church. They don't know how to see what's going on in the churches. If someone comes into their church, they might be able to recognize the signs. Once we teach them about outreach, we always tell them, if you think you see something, do not approach that person. Be mindful that trafficker could be around. You could cause more hurt than harm if you try to approach them.
So when we get into that type of thing, what are things that, the stories that you've heard, the kind of adults that you've saved, what do people need to be looking out for? Like, because human trafficking is a big umbrella.
It's a big umbrella. Like, say, for instance, if you have a teacher that's in a school and they see a child that was making good grades and their grades start to drop, and you see a child that's wearing the name brand clothes, shoes, they just got a lot of expensive things on, and you wonder where that's coming from, and you say, you want to look and ask questions. And most of the times, if a teacher knows their kids, they pretty much know the home life, who's their parents, kind of what they're doing and everything. So we ask them to kind of look and see what they're doing. You can ask the child some, different type questions and everything, and you'll pretty much kind of know when it comes to if a child are doing things or staying out late. And so social media is a big thing. Traffickers, a lot of people think traffickers walk up to kids and say things to kids, or they snatch them like the white van. They think things like that. But a lot of these traffickers are getting through social media. They find your, I guess you call it your hashtag, They'll get that from you. It's easy to get that, but parents need to be aware of what their children are doing. Video games, they can get in there. You got a lot of video games that, personally, I didn't even know. I was, kind of caught off guard with some of the video games that traffickers can kind of.
It's kind of these online games that people are playing, and not to single any of them out, but I know in the news recently was a Roblox where kids go in there and they're playing fun games, but they don't realize that they're talking to an adult in that chat room.
Exactly.
Or if you're just playing regular online games, it could be Xbox, PlayStation, whatever those
is. And
those
most
ones
of those,
are.
Familiar games, traffickers, they know, they'll find another way to get in if that game is becoming too popular, gaining too much attention. They'll find another way to get in. So they know how to get in, but it's up to us to notice the signs and everything when something is going on with someone.
It gives me great pause when all these, my son is in a junior high and everybody's on Instagram and the Snapchat, and he's like, always wants, why can't I have Snapchat? Yeah. You can't have it, son. I'm just telling you right now. There's no Snapchat going on in this house. I promise you that. Instagram, but I watch it very, very closely. And it's scary because they can get into these kids that, my gosh, we as parents are like, how'd they get in there? But oftentimes we let it happen,
right?
Because we trust in the kids. Well, my friends all have this and this, and it used to be the old saying, hey, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off with them? Now it's like, well, if your friend gets snatched on Snapchat, you're gonna go too. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's very, very frightening. The other thing, I was in human trafficking, and I was taught the signs a little bit to look for. So when you're in Walmart.
Yes.
And not just for kids. This is for like older adults, like women and such. Walmart, walking around at an outlet mall. What are some of the things that people need to look out for adults, especially when they're looking for people that may be victims of trafficking?
For one thing, victims of trafficking, they're hiding in plain sight. They're not going to walk up to you. They're going to try to stay away. They need help, but they're not going to walk up to you and say anything. So that's why you always see the hiding in plain sight when it comes to that. But there are signs you can look for when it comes to that. A trafficker, you might see a young lady that, please forgive me, I'm not trying to use women as that, but you might see a young man kind of standing around, and you might see him talking to someone, or someone trying to, ask for directions or something. And the conversation could go a whole nother way. It would say, well, hey, I saw you in the, looking at those, I saw you looking at Foot Locker. I saw you looking at those nice shoes. And for instance, that person might say, well, yeah, I can buy you those shoes, and you can have some nice shoes. Your mom and dad won't have to worry about buying you anything. And so once something like that happens, then the trafficker can come back and say later on, well, hey, I bought you those shoes. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to do this for me. So you kind of have to watch out for things like that. And, kids think, but children might think that it's, okay to accept gifts from an older adult. And they might not know that is basically trying to get them to lead them in an area that they do not want to go. So that itself is scary, trying to lead them down that lifestyle. So you have to be vigilant of everything that's going on when it comes to trafficking. But the most part of it is in plain sight. But like I say, victims are not going to just run right up to you and say anything unless they want to disclose to you. And once they disclose to you, you have to take those precautionary measures to reach out to the right people.
But I think you mentioned it earlier, which is so important to people, is to, if you suspect somebody looks uncomfortable around another person and they're walking through a store or things like that, and you could tell, well, something just doesn't look right there. They don't look like they're very comfortable, or it's like how you look at someone and you can tell they want to say something to you, but they can't.
And pay attention when you're being followed. Pay attention to your surroundings. That's one of the things that we're teaching regarding teen dating, and we're targeting our campuses. We have a campus cohort where we target our community colleges and our major universities, because everybody loves to travel for spring break. But, we're traveling out of state, out of country. We're just thinking about, we're going to have a good time, and kids are trafficked. Right? And so we do focus on prevention in terms of traveling safe, the buddy system, letting people know where you are, right? Checking in. Those things are very important. Knowing the area that you're going to travel in. Do your homework, right? Those things are very important because you could be traveling to an area that has a high trafficking rate, right? So all of those things are very important. So we just started working with our campuses to talk about trafficking and sexual assault services. And so we're going to be putting more funding there because we know trafficking happens when kids leave for the holidays and like I said, spring break. That's a big one. Everybody loves to go to the beach, right? But things like that happen, and we just want our kids to be prepared, especially those that live out of state. They're coming into our state to go to school on a scholarship, and then, something bad happens. So we want to prepare our children, those that are in high school, because you mentioned junior high, and so we do target all ages. And so trafficking happens, and so we do work with the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. Yeah. They also have a human trafficking navigator as well, where they also go out and work with find children, rescue children, recover children, and that's a partnership also. We also specialize with adult trafficking victims, so let me just be clear. And one of the most disheartening things about working with adult trafficking victims is they can refuse the help. With children, you immediately come in, rescue, and put them in protective custody. But adults, because they are of legal age, they can go back, and there's nothing that we could do but try to save them again.
Well, and when you talk about the adults and some that may refuse it, though, as we're traveling around for the holidays, or just when you're traveling in general throughout the year, I mean, if you see something doesn't look quite right in a hotel as you're staying there, I mean, I guess you said the number one thing is, well, don't approach the people, don't approach that person, but definitely notify somebody and let them have a law enforcement check them out, right? Same thing if you see somebody in the store, don't go up in the store and say, hey, are you all right? Make sure you call the local law enforcement, right? Would that be the best thing to do?
You can call for human trafficking. You can call law enforcement. We also have a statewide human trafficking coordinator. She's on that side with DPS. You can call her, and she will get you in contact with the right people on that end. And I will say this: I will double back when we do try to help victims when they might, something happens to them and they need to go to the hospital. I mean, I wanted to say something about the medical field. We have a part where we try to educate doctors, nurses to see what's going on and ask questions, and if they disclose, the doctors, the nurses, or any kind of medical person would know what to do with that person because they see it, but sometimes they don't know exactly what they're seeing. If you come in and somebody's had multiple pregnancies, someone's come in, they always beat up, or they have bruises that are in different stages of healing.
That's
STDs.
Another thing.
Those are things you can look out for. And when she was saying about the services, when adults refuse services, we've had a story where law enforcement knew a young lady was in trafficking, and she rejected the services. And all of a sudden, maybe 5 times later, she finally accepted the services. So it's being persistent and letting them know that you're there for them. They might not take it that first time. It might be the 10th time. But they might take it. But just to let them know, like Sarissa was saying, knowing that the resources are out there. So I will double back on Human Trafficking Awareness Month, where we'll have billboards put up for the month, and it'll be in our major quarters for January. So we're really looking forward to that, and that'll run through January through March, that the health department will be doing that. So that's that outreach part of it.
So we covered some domestic violence. We covered some human trafficking. Sarissa, what else did you want to tout with the great work that you all are doing?
So VOCA pays for all victimization types. We even focus on victims that are blind, that are deaf, with severe mental and physical disabilities, victims of mass violence crimes. So, for example, hey, you decide, you and your buddies, that you guys want to go to the club and there's a club shooting. We pay for all the victims that went to the club and helping them. We pay for legal services, case management, transportation, crisis intervention. You name it. If it supports direct services for restitution and recovery, it's no charge to the victim. And so that's one of the awesome things we like about VOCA and victim compensation. So kind of doubling back on college students. And so if someone was a victim of a crime and they were in school and as a result it affected their tuition, compensation would restore by paying the tuition. And so once again, this is something free to help that person continue on with their life. But I just don't want to talk about VOCA so much. I definitely want to, put some of the spotlight on the fact that all of our grants pay for rape crisis centers, sexual assault, and that's one of the areas where our office is trying to develop standards and certification. So if somebody wanted to be a rape crisis center or a sexual assault center, we would have the standards to say by this standard you can deliver these services. So that's on the horizon also for our office. And so Dr. Larisha Robinson oversees the sexual assault services program and also services training officers and prosecution funding as well. And you would be surprised how we need to prepare law enforcement, how we need to prepare our prosecutors. Because they need to be trauma informed about the services, because even the way you handle the situation, you don't want to re-traumatize. You think you may be doing something well because you're that protector. You're going to ensure that they're safe going forward. But the way you talk to them in that interview, it can trigger, some things for them. So just training our law enforcement, I'll get Dr. Robson to talk more about that grant.
So like Sarissa said, so first off with the grant I oversee is Violence Against Women Act, which is VAWA. So as we already talked about, we have a grant, SAS, which is Sexual Assault Services Program that addresses sexual assault, and we've talked a little bit about that already. But like Sarissa said, there's also another component in training law enforcement and prosecution to adequately be equipped to handle these situations, because like Sarissa said, you don't want to re-traumatize a victim. You don't want to go about it the wrong way where they change their mind about services. So our STOP program, Services Training Officers Prosecution, helps build communities' capacities to help them with law enforcement and prosecution strategies. So to help them to be able to build a capacity to know how to handle a situation, to know how to address certain situations, how to talk to a victim, how to go about it. But it also helps with strengthening victim services as well. So I like that VAWA includes not only just addressing sexual assault victims with our SASP award, but it also equips law enforcement and prosecution to adequately handle those situations as well.
And we could also pay for additional law enforcement. So that's another blessing. So if a local area does not have enough law enforcement staff, right, you can take funding from us to build your force as long as you're working with victims of a crime.
Well, the biggest the thing we like to leave folks with on it is an action item. Sometimes they don't want to reach directly out to law enforcement right away, and that's where you guys come in, because we're just normal folks, right? They view us as just normal folks. What's the best way that folks can either learn more or want to directly access your services there in the OAIV office?
I'll let anybody answer. We definitely have a website that talks about our services. There is a number on our website as well. But I will say we're going to be redoing our website to include more handout type information to download, so that victims not only can just go and look, but download information to take and share. And so, but definitely our website, our number is out there, program overview. And so I think that that's a really great start.
Everybody has their phone. If they want to just drop you an email real quick, because that oftentimes is the easiest, because it's not, I don't have to talk to somebody on the phone. I can at least lay the groundwork by shooting an email. What's the email they could send to you to at least get the ball rolling?
all of us can be emailed directly. We also serve as a liaison, as a coordinator, to ensure that there's no gap in service. So even though we're functioning as an administrator, we are also functioning as coordinators and liaison, because we're going to guarantee that if someone calls, they're going to get help.
Right.
And so and I'm okay with giving out my email address directly if that's
certainly.
okay.
Go right ahead.
And so it's CERISSA.eubanks, EUBANKS @msdh.ms.gov.
And that was the great resource is our website, as you mentioned. You go to msdh.ms.gov, and if you want to go directly to it, just in the search bar, type in OAIV, and it's going to shoot you to everything that we have thus far, and which will only be a growing resource list.
Yep.
Right, and I will say, Greg, as far as human trafficking, if someone needs help, they do have a national hotline, and just you can actually text. I know a lot of people may not be able to call if they're with their trafficker, but you can text "Be Free" for the National Human Trafficking Hotline.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, there's plenty of resources out there, and I'm just so glad that we're able to bring not only this subject to light, but to be able to provide people with a can-do. What can you do? What can you be on the lookout for? Because it takes all of us, whether we're, victims of it, involved in it, or just bystanders.
All right.
A lot of times we're objective, and we're all pretty sharp people. And you say, something just doesn't look quite right there. So just like they say with Homeland Security, if you see something, say something.
Absolutely.
It goes exactly for this exactly same thing.
Absolutely. Can I share two more important hotline
Please
resources?
Do.
And so also on our website, we have two important hotlines. That's the domestic or interpersonal violence hotline number, which is 1-800-898-3234. We also have the sexual assault or rape crisis intervention line, and that's 1-800-565-HOPE. And so those are two very important hotline resource numbers that you can find on our website.
Well, this has been fantastic today, ladies. I do appreciate all of you coming in, because all the expertise and this team working together, I think, can make a difference. I absolutely think we can make a difference in Mississippi, and I'm proud to have you guys all working with us there at the health department.
Yep.
Well, Happy New Year to you. It's going to be a great 2026, right?
It is.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Health Talk Mississippi. We hope you all have a Happy New Year and a very prosperous 2026. Until next month, I'm Greg Flynn, and this has been Health Talk Mississippi.